Assassin's Promise by Thomas Woodward. Chapter 70. The temple rose before us. Great billowing clouds of metallic smoke hung near its entrance, burning from braziers hung on poles that were arranged in a wide arc. The smell of sulfur and spices returned. It was an odd combination, both caustic and compelling. The stone staircase displayed strange beasts frozen into the rock, misshapen abominations, alongside beautiful creatures of wonder. Animal and human was mixed in odd patterns of limbs and torsos, no two the same. There was a startling look of life that each statue held, as if it could awaken at any moment, so real they were. I gazed into the mouth of a snake that was wider than a horse's head. It sat on the thick chest of a bull. Its stout legs ended in bird-like talons that ripped at the ground beneath them. Each eye had been replaced by a giant gemstone bead of jet, as black as midnight. Eve grazed past me in my stunned awe. I felt the softness of her form touch me, and I was pulled away. As we crested the clay staircase, I saw an inscription carved above the immense doorway. A wavy line separated what looked like crashing waves coming from each direction. There were a series of sharp marks on one side and a fewer number on the other side of the wavy line that bisected the image. They reminded me of hatch marks that one used for counting numbers. We moved on before I could stop and count them. As we passed through the large opening, I could see the immense bronze doors that were set on hinges, which had been pushed out to their limit. They must have been a full 30 spans in height and must have weighed thousands of tons. How could anyone move such a monstrous door by themselves? The stairs leading down into the temple appeared to be cut from the very stone of the mountain and were much larger than those made for humans. We had to hop a full 4 feet down each stair, our bodies tiny in relation to them. Looking above into the darkness, I could not see the ceiling. Using what I had seen of the great structure for reference, I guessed it would be hundreds if not thousands of spans in height. Truly we were insects by comparison. As we moved further down into the temple, I could see the stairs disappearing far into the darkness ahead of us. Looking back in a moment of panic, I turned to see the robed figure pushing the doors closed behind us. My mind reeled at the force that would be necessary to accomplish such a feat. There was a very faint rumbling, like oiled stones pushing over a waterfall. As I tensed, the doors shut with a finality, the sliver of white light disappearing behind them. For a moment, all was darkness. I could still feel the warmth of Eve's hand, but sheer terror nearly overtook me right then and there. Eve made a gentle soothing noise and pressed her body to mine, the warmth enveloping me like a roaring fire. I broke off the yell I had been about to loose. "Please stay. I will keep you safe. I will be your guide. You need not fear." Her voice was warm and strong. She squeezed my hand again. I could not see her face, but she continued to press against me, warming me. Tentatively, I wrapped my arm around her back and stood there in complete darkness. The last low rumbles receded as true silence fell. I was in the depths of a forgotten city, but I was not alone. Smiling in the darkness, I leaned forward and found Eve's lips and kissed her deeply. A warmth washed over me, making the darkness recede for the space of a heartbeat. She breathed warm air on my neck and pulled me onward. "Come to me. I will show you our people." Eve's gentle embrace kindled my courage like a bellows at the forge. With her guiding me, I would forget my fear. The warmth enveloped me in a cocoon. Then I took a step forwards. Cool stone greeted me. We continued downwards tentatively at first. With no light to guide us, I worried we would fall and lose our footing. "Will we continue downward in total darkness?" I said. "I worry that we might fall without any light to guide us." I lowered my voice to a whisper unconsciously, my voice sounding unnaturally loud in my ears. "There will be a light as we descend further. After a while, your eyes will begin to adjust. I forgot how different our vision is from yours. Keep your hand linked with mine. I will guide you. Eve breathed evenly, the feel of her warm where she brushed against me. I trusted her. With that trust came a sense of acceptance. I hoped it would hold as we descended further into the darkness. The steps remained a good 4 feet in height, seemingly designed for some creature of gargantuan proportions. Eve was close to my height, and unless the rest of her people varied greatly from her, it still did not explain who the steps had been intended for. We crawled down one step and repeated the process again, over and over without end. After a while my eyes adjusted a bit, but my sight did not improve. With a sense of dread, I realized there truly was no discernible light from where we stood. With sudden awareness, I noted that if terror overtook me in the darkness, I could potentially be stuck here permanently. Luckily, the air we breathed still felt cool and clean, which was a blessing. After what seemed like 2 hours or more, we stopped and rested for a while against the back of a stair, the blackness filling my vision completely. It no longer mattered if I kept my eyes opened or closed. The result was the same. I held Eve's hand with a strong grip. This more than anything anchored me. If I lost touch with her, I feared I would go mad quickly. As we rested, I realized we carried with us no food or water. We wouldn't start to feel it for a few hours, but if we did not reach our destination soon, the situation would become dire quickly. I hadn't even stopped to consider that Eve may not feel the same desires for food or water as I would. Sensing my thoughts, Eve spoke then. "We will reach the base of the temple soon. There will be food and water that I have stored against just such an occasion." Eve strummed her fingers over my stomach lightly, almost playfully, before leaning in for a tentative kiss. I could feel the softness of her breasts push up against me as she lingered in my embrace. I felt the warmth run through me like a wondrous thing, giving me renewed energy. I held her close for a moment, and the darkness no longer mattered. It was intoxicating. Eve helped me to my feet, and without a word, we continued our descent, just the connection of our linked hands being enough. As we scrambled down the endless line of steps, the temperature began to change, almost imperceptibly at first. There was a slight warmth to the current of air that hung around us, not stifling, but pleasant. Tiny cracks in the darkness began spiderwebbing over my vision, then as we continued to descend. It was like there were gaps in the thick darkness around us. The blackness had been so complete you could almost shape it with your hands. It began to seep away, silently retreating in front of the traces of silver that appeared at the edge of our line of sight below. Curious, I clambered down oversized stairs with renewed vigor. There appeared to be tiny blots of silver that interspersed the blackness. As we continued, I could begin to see the outlines of an antechamber. Distantly, the silver resolved into small pools, perhaps puddles no larger than a foot across, or possibly the size of a great lake. It was impossible to tell from our vantage point. Eve pulled me close and made a hushing noise, low in her throat. "We must not surprise them. To do so would be very dangerous. Do not speak or raise your voice above a whisper. It is custom that I present you to our people only once. They have shown us their favor." I stared in the darkness at Eve, the questioning look on my face no doubt lost to her sight. She brushed my lip with a finger, as if to mime for silence. We moved ahead slowly, taking our time to avoid something, I did not know what. As we crossed the antechamber, I could more clearly see burnished pools of silver. They glowed oddly, as if they were constantly being mixed by the unseen hand of an artist. They swirled and flowed in strange patterns, but I could not see into their depths. As we continued onwards, I could see a faint light filtering down from above. It had a faint greenish cast to it. It must have been thousands of spans above us, for the rush of air made apparent the incredible size of the cavern we now traversed. I could see faintly glowing lichen that clung to the walls. It pulsed with an alien life. The thrumming of its beats echoed through our footfalls. I could begin to feel the warmth through the soles of my shoes. Eve pulled me onward with an excitement that I could feel through our bond. "We are almost there." Eve pressed her face to mine, giving me a quick kiss, before pulling away with a laugh. There was a strange pulse to the room, as if I had been here before, perhaps in a dream. Or a memory? But that simply could not be. I had never been here before in my life. I dismissed the oddness that I felt, feeling a bit unsteady on my feet just then. The feeling of strangeness did not dissipate, however. I felt it more strongly with each step forward. Eve laughed and skipped forward into the eerie darkness of the dimly lit cavern. She nimbly passed pools of startling moonsilver, and large stones covered in the same glowing lichen. I felt the loss of her like a physical force that hit me square in the chest. "Eve, where are you going?" My voice echoed oddly off the immense walls of the gargantuan cavern. It was so large a space I could not yet see the far walls, opposite those of the antechamber. Eve's musical laugh echoed back to me, bouncing off walls in a strange distortion of sound. I kept moving forward at a slow pace, even more unsure of myself now that I had lost my guide, if only for the moment. I hoped that she would return to me before I strayed too far from the path, if indeed there was a path. My feet felt warm against the rocky ground of the cavern. There was a heat that crept up from the ground. It was pleasant, but I could not fathom its source. I was no longer in abject darkness. The faint glimmers from above guided me onward. The light was very faint, but my eyes welcomed its presence with greedy abandon. I felt like I was looking upwards through the bottom of a lake. The air moved oddly with the light, bending and refracting at impossible angles. The surroundings pulled at me. I could almost... What? It felt like déjà vu. Perhaps I had dreamed of a place similar to this. How strange. I gawked as I wandered aimlessly on, careful to avoid the shimmering pools of silver liquid. Their currents kept them swirling in odd patterns. There must be an underwater stream, but I had never seen any substance like this before. The pools reacted the closer I came to them. They would spin faster, and I felt a renewed strangeness wash over me whenever I approached one. I would have to ask Eve about them. I hoped she would return to me soon. The memory of her warmth caused me to blush in spite of myself. I had never seen a woman bear herself completely before. I chose to turn my thoughts back towards my trek, keeping my eyes forward, hoping to avoid detection until I could rejoin with Eve. The enormous empty expanse made me think of a tomb. Perhaps it was. I hoped it would not be mine. As I moved farther across the immense floor of the cavern, I saw numberless pools shifting and swirling beneath my gaze. The earthen floor was honeycombed with them, although there were no main tributaries that I could find. Where did the silvery substance come from? Sound was muffled, my voice echoing oddly whenever I called out, trying to locate Eve. After a few minutes of this, I stopped, wanting to save my breath. Eve had seemingly disappeared without a trace. As I tread onward through the silent gallery, an odd form appeared to my view. A small shape rose as I moved forward, resolving into a stone pedestal. I could not tell how far from me it truly lay. It appeared to be no more than perhaps 100 spans from me. Curious, I moved forward tentatively, not wanting to create unnecessary sound with my approach. As I moved, the pedestal remained no closer to me than it had first appeared. After what seemed like another hour, it still remained no closer to me than before. Frustrated, I sat on the warm ground, unsure how to proceed. "Eve! Are you out there? Hello?" No response came. I sat in the strange, glimmering light from above. My lightly calloused feet felt tired and sore, my throat was dry, and my hunger had returned. A small thrumming filled me, as if the pull from the earth itself had entered into my being. I felt the strange pulse. It was both calming and maddening. Why could I not remember? I felt like the edge of a distant memory, but blotted out to view. Was I going mad? How could I have possibly been here before? I cradled my head in my hands, unsure what to do. Part of me wanted to go on, but I felt that I might simply lose myself further out in the darkness. Had Eve intentionally led me down here to my own unsuspecting demise? The chilling thought lingered. I had felt so safe with her. I had felt a warmth. She would not betray me. I stubbornly clung to this. Maybe something had caught Eve. Could something have taken her away, or worse? She had spoken of her people living down here, within the great temple. Where were they? Could anyone live, cloaked in this darkness? I hugged myself, trying to think about my options. If Eve had been caught by something, or if I had been abandoned here, I would need to retrace my steps back upwards to the surface, in total darkness. Even once I reached the great bronze doors, there was no way I could move them, I realized. They must weigh thousands of tons. I was still unsure how my guide had closed the great doors on us. Perhaps there was a lever that moved them. What if there was no such device on the inside? I would be stuck here, searching for a way out in the gloom. There was no guarantee I would find one before I grew weak from thirst. Sitting there in the dim cavern, I took my hands away from my face. I wanted more than anything to see Eve again. I didn't care if she had betrayed me. I just wanted to see her once more. Looking up, my gaze was level with the stone pedestal that rose from the ground. It lay no more than a pace in front of me. There was a giant green gem that sparkled deeply, resting at its center. My mind tried to process how this was possible, but I could see the brilliant gem spring to life as a filtered beam of light hit the jewel. A multitude of facets reflected a dazzling green light, drawing my breath away. I had never seen a gem so perfect, so vivid, in my life.